Over the course of 3 seasons, the title character of the Mandalorian has gone from ruthless bounty hunter to bona fide galactic hero, and a dad to boot. Here's how he got there. In the 3rd season, the Mandalorian flashes back to Grogu's early days in the Jedi Temple. More specifically, it's one very bad day when Order 66 occurs. Grogu barely makes it off of Coruscant alive after Darth Vader and his clone army attacked the Jedi. Revenge of the Sith takes place almost 30 years before the Mandalorian, which would make Grogu around 20 during his escape. He needs the help of many allies to get away in one piece. Numerous Jedi sacrifice their lives to get Grogu out. He's eventually intercepted by Master Kelleran Beck, played by Ahmed Best, who also voiced and did the motion capture for Jar Jar Binks. Kelleran Beck successfully fights off the advancing clones and takes Grogu on a tense speeder chase through Coruscant, arriving at a landing pad where a Naboo ship is docked. A group of guards helps keep the clone forces at bay while Kelleran and Grogu make their getaway in the ship. This flashback raises as many questions as it answers. How did Grogu come to be in the Jedi Temple in the first place? Where was he for the 30 years between his escape and when Din Djarin found him? Did Padme send the Naboo guards to help him? And what became of Kelleran Beck? Hopefully we'll find out more about Grogu's past soon. Long before he was a bounty hunter who honored the traditions of Mandalore, Din Djarin, the titular Mandalorian, was a young boy who lived on the planet Arc-Vetina. During the age of the old Galactic Republic, Din's home is attacked by combat droids from the Separatist Confederacy, so his parents hide him in a small bunker shortly before they're killed in the massacre. Din is eventually discovered by a hostile droid, but is saved as a Mandalorian group known as Death Watch descend into the fight. This faction of Mandalorians would eventually separate into warring factions, one of which came to be known for their fanatical and strict adherence to ancient traditions, the Children of the Watch. One of the Death Watch members helps Din out of his hiding space and whisks him to safety. Din then becomes a foundling, abandoned or lone children saved and adopted by Mandalorians. The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels detail the gradual decline of Mandalore from a strong galactic power to a desperate Imperial colony. Ages of infighting have led to division and weakness within the once powerful society, which made it easy for Emperor Palpatine and his armies to subjugate. Rebel shows how Bo-Katan Kryze led her people in resistance, but the Mandalorian reveals the sad results of her actions, the Great Purge of Mandalore.
Bo-Katan is a cautionary tale.
The Night of 1,000 Tears was the initiating event of the Purge. It was a brutal Imperial campaign that wiped out Mandalorian military units and civilian targets alike. Huge swaths of the Mandalorian homeworld were devastated, prompting Bo-Katan to broker peace with Moff Gideon. She relinquished the Darksaber, the symbol of ruling power on Mandalore, to him in exchange for a guarantee of safety for Mandalore's citizens. Of course, Gideon went back on the deal and continued his genocidal attacks on the planet. The few survivors were forced to live in hiding or go on the run as mercenaries. The Mandalorian depicts the early years of New Republic rule and the beginning of the secret Imperial remnant that eventually leads to the rise of the First Order. Most of this happens in the background, but there are moments when we get a better look at what's actually going on in the shadows. Throughout the series so far, Moff Gideon has grappled with a secret cloning project that's not fully revealed until the end of the 3rd season. He needs Grogu to help develop the Force-sensitive part of the project. At the same time, other former Imperials are building strength in other areas. As explored in the Aftermath novels, many of Palpatine's most loyal followers have retreated to the unknown regions after the Battle of Jakku. These expats become the foundation of what becomes the First Order. Gideon's secret base on Mandalore is also likely constructed during this time, or even earlier. It's far too complex to have been built entirely after his escape from New Republic custody, but it's unclear how long he staked out the Great Purge. 5 years after the fall of the Empire on the planet Nevarro, Din has grown up to be a seasoned bounty hunter. He works for Greef Karga, an agent of the Bounty Hunters Guild, and accepts targets on a contract basis. Early on, Karga maintains connections with the remaining Imperials, as it seems to be good for business. He even attempts to pay Din in Imperial currency, but the bounty hunter rejects that form of payment.
I don't know if you heard, but the Empire is gone.
Karga offers Din the bounty that will change his life forever. After meeting with an Imperial client, Din learns his target is to be captured alive or dead, with the latter option garnering a lower fee. It's also revealed that the target is approximately 50 years old. It's a rather mysterious proposition, but Din takes it on without hesitation. Din arrives on Avala 7 to track down the target, and he is instantly assaulted by its wildlife. He's saved by Queel, an upright Ugnaught who recently gained his freedom after spending his life in servitude. Queel shows Din how to ride a monstrous creature called a blurg, so Din can make the trek to the encampment where his target resides. As Din spies on the encampment, he sees another bounty hunter, the droid IG-11, engage the hostiles on the ground. Mando teams up with the droid to secure the bounty, Grogu, who is of the same species as Master Yoda and Yaddle. Mando is confused by the target's youth, but IG-11 notes that varying aliens age at different rates. IG-11 then aims to collect the bounty, but Din terminates the droid before the child can be harmed. Din experiences the child's force abilities for the first time when it saves his life from a mudhorn. Even after that encounter, Din reluctantly returns the child to his Imperial client. Din soon has second thoughts, however, and he retrieves Grogu with the help of his fellow Mandalorians. Din escapes with Grogu in tow and is determined to flee far away from the grasp of the Bounty Hunters Guild, knowing full well that they have trackers capable of locating the child. They land on the planet Sorgan where they meet Cara Dune, an ex-rebel shock trooper. Din learns that the village he's visiting is being tormented by raiders. He accepts an offer to help with the assistance of Dune in exchange for a temporary roof over his head. Many of the villagers have lost loved ones to the raiders, so Din and Dune train them to defend themselves. They successfully repel a raider incursion even though the enemy force is packing an Imperial AT-ST. Din resolves to leave the child at the village to live in peace, but Cara Dune narrowly saves the child's life after she terminates a bounty hunter sniper from the trees. Knowing it is no longer safe on Sorgan, Din leaves with the child. Another bounty hunter soon pursues Din and Grogu. Din manages to outmaneuver his pursuer, but his ship, the Razor Crest, is damaged. He lands in Mos Eisley on Tatooine for repairs. Leaving the child in the care of the repair shop manager, Pelimoto, Mando sets off to find work to pay for the repairs. He comes across a young and inexperienced bounty hunter, Toro Calican, who is attempting to get into the Bounty Hunters Guild by accepting a rather tough assignment, hunting down the assassin Fennec Shand. Calican enlists Din's help to find Shand. After a tense showdown that leads to Shand's capture, Shand tells Calican that the Mandalorian and the child are high-value targets of the Guild, and that killing the Mandalorian would bring Calican fame and a legendary status. Calican shoots Shand but doesn't kill her. He then takes the child and Moto captive. Din arrives and kills a young bounty hunter, using Calican's money to pay Moto for the repairs before departing Tatooine. Seeking more work, Din contacts an old friend, Ranzar Malk, who offers him a job that requires a team of 5, freeing a prisoner from a New Republic prison. The other members of the team include an ex-Imperial sharpshooter named Migs Mayfeld, a Nevarronian, a droid, and a Twi'lek woman named Xi'an, with whom Din shares a history. Tensions run high in the group. Din distrusts the others, and they seem largely contemptuous of him. Yet they successfully free the prisoner, who turns out to be Xi'an's brother, Quinn. He was imprisoned after Din left him behind on a previous mission. The others turn on Din, locking him in Quinn's prison cell. Din manages to escape and begins hunting down his former teammates one by one. After defeating and imprisoning each of them, he delivers Quinn to Malk himself, demanding his payment before taking off. Malk orders his gunship pilots to shoot Din down, but realizes with horror that Din had placed a homing beacon on Quinn. 3 New Republic X-Wing fighters arrive and attack Malk's station. Din soon receives a message from Greef Karga, asking for his assistance in taking down Imperial troops that have seized his city on Nevarro. Karga says the operation will wipe the mysterious client who seeks the child off the board.
I would like to see the baby.
Plus, Karga will clear Din's name with the Guild, which would mean the Mandalorian could continue traveling with Grogu. Din reluctantly accepts in hopes of removing the constant danger of bounty hunters on his trail. He also recruits Cara Dune to assist with the operation. Din and Dune make contact with Queel and find that he has restored IG-11, but installed programming that has enabled it to learn from its experience and gain a new caring personality. Queel suggests that he care for the child alongside IG-11, while Din and Dune carry out their mission. Din, who hates droids because of the events of his youth on Akvatina, voices his distrust of IG-11, but agrees. It's revealed that Karga had planned to betray Din, but he drops his plot after the child heals him from a near-fatal wound. Din hatches a plan to pose as Karga and Dune's prisoner to reach the client. Meanwhile, stormtroopers find and kill Queel and take the child. Din's plan might have worked if not for the arrival of Moff Gideon, whose troops kill the client and pin down Din, Dune, and Karga. Thankfully, IG-11 finds the stormtroopers who captured Grogu and takes him back. He then rides a speeder bike through town, eliminating stormtroopers, giving Din and the others the distraction they need to start fighting. Din is injured in the fighting, and the group retreats to the cantina where they'd met the client. Din tells Karga and Dune to escape through the sewers with Grogu and seek help from the Mandalorians. IG-11 offers to heal Din, but Din initially refuses to remove his helmet because of the children of the Watcher's code of honor. IG-11 insists it's not a living being, so removing the helmet shouldn't be a violation. Din reluctantly removes his helmet so IG-11 can heal him with Bacta spray. Din and IG-11 follow their friends into the tunnels, only to find out that most of the Mandalorian warriors who resided there have fled. The armorer who stayed behind to collect their materials declares that Din and the child are now Clan Mudhorn. She explains that Din's new directive is to keep the child as a foundling until he can be returned to his own people. Din, Karga, Dune, IG-11, and Grogu then flee on a boat down a lava river. IG-11 sacrifices himself to destroy their pursuers, and Din takes down Moff Gideon's TIE fighter. Believing Gideon to be dead, the heroes go their separate ways. A surviving Gideon cuts his way out of the wreckage with a fabled dark saber. Din begins searching for other Mandalorians to aid him in his quest to return the child to his people, and learns of a Mandalorian in Mos Pelgo on Tatooine. There, Din meets Sheriff Cobb Vanth, who is adorned in a particularly distinctive set of Mandalorian armor, Boba Fett. Not a Mandalorian himself, Vanth claims to have purchased it from a group of Jawas.
But round here, I'm the one tells folks what to do.
Din demands the armor back, but before they can fight over it, the town is struck by a krayt dragon that has been feasting on the local livestock. Vanth agrees to give Din the armor if they work together to slay the dragon. The pair works with the townsfolk as well as a group of Tusken raiders who also want the krayt dragon dead. Din eventually tricks the creature into swallowing him and his bantha, which is packing explosives. He escapes by shocking the creature, flies from the krayt dragon's mouth, and detonates the explosives, saving the town from the creature and winning Boba Fett's armor. Din heads back to Mos Eisley in hopes of finding another lead to track down other Mandalorians. Halimoto puts him in touch with the Frog Lady, who requires that Din take her, along with her eggs, to a moon called Trask. He is also not allowed to use his hyperdrive or her eggs will die. While en route, the Razor Crest is flanked by 2 New Republic X-Wings, which recognize the Razor Crest as a craft involved in the earlier Prison Break. Din manages to evade the X-Wings, but in the process crash lands in an ice canyon on a remote planet. Din makes some necessary repairs, but he, Grogu, and the Frog Lady are swarmed by spider-like creatures. The New Republic X-Wing fighters arrive to save the day. They know that Din has an arrest warrant for breaking Quinn out of prison, but they also note that he detained 3 others with warrants and risked his life trying to save a New Republic officer. Upon arriving on Trask, and despite Grogu's appetite for her eggs, the Frog Lady informs Din of an inn where Mandalorians have been spotted. A fishboat captain tells Mando that he knows where the Mandalorians are and can take him there. But the captain attempts to kill Din and Grogu so that he can steal Din's Beskar armor. A group of Mandalorians arrive and save the duo, but then remove their helmets, which instantly puzzles Din. The leader, Bo-Katan, explains that as a child of the Watch, Din is a religious fanatic. She, however, is part of a mainstream society born on Mandalore, which apparently tolerates helmet removal. Despite Din's initial distrust of Bo-Katan, he eventually aligns with her team. Bo-Katan agrees to assist Din with Grogu if he helps her raid an Imperial freighter. During the mission, she reveals that she is searching for the Darksaber, which she believes she needs to rule Mandalore once again. After they take the ship, Bo-Katan tells Din where he can find a Jedi named Ahsoka Tano. Din heads back to Nevarro, where he meets up with Cara Dune and Greef Karga. Dune is now serving as a local marshal, and Karga is High Magistrate. Karga arranges for the complete repair of the Razor Crest and asks Din to help take out a remaining Imperial base in an effort to bring peace to Nevarro. Din, Dune, Karga, and the Mithril that Din captured for Karga earlier learn that the base is a research facility full of cloned bodies. A recording from Dr. Pershing, who is overseeing Gideon's cloning experiments, indicates that during the brief time they had access to the child, Imperial researchers have been attempting to transfuse his blood into the clones. The recording also reveals that Moff Gideon is still alive. The team arranges for the base's destruction while fleeing enemy forces, ultimately prevailing thanks to a repaired Razor Crest. Din and Grogu leave to find Ahsoka, while Dune and Karga deal with New Republic investigators. It's revealed that one of Karga's mechanics has planted a tracking beacon on the Razor Crest on Gideon's behalf. On the forest planet Corvus, Ahsoka gives Imperial Magistrate Morgan Elsbeth an ultimatum: surrender and identify the whereabouts of her master, Grand Admiral Thrawn, or die. Din arrives in the Magistrate's city, Calodan, and meets with her. She offers him a Beskar spear if he kills Ahsoka. Outside the city, Ahsoka ambushes Din, but stops attacking when he tells her that he was sent by Bo-Katan. Ahsoka communicates with the child and learns that he hails from Coruscant's Jedi Temple, as well as his name, Grogu.
He's hidden his abilities to survive over the years.
Ahsoka tells Din that she cannot train Grogu due to the child's anger and fear, and his attachment to Din. In exchange for Ahsoka helping him obtain Jedi training for Grogu, Din offers to help Ahsoka take down Elsbeth. The pair storm Caladan, where Mando kills the Magistrate's lieutenant, while Ahsoka confronts the Magistrate herself. The Jedi defeats Elsbeth and demands to know where Thrawn is. Din, meanwhile, claims a Beskar spear. After the victory, Ahsoka still refuses to train Grogu, instructing Din to take him to the planet Tython, where he can set Grogu upon a seeing stone within the ruins of the Jedi Temple, and the child can attempt to call the Jedi using the Force. On Tython, Grogu communes with the Force, but Boba Fett interrupts with Fennec Shand by his side. Fett saved her life after her encounter with Toro Calican, and the two of them have been tracking Din to obtain the armor that he recovered from Cobb Vanth. Din agrees to give Fett the armor, but only if he helps protect the child as Imperial forces arrive. Din, Fett, and Shand all engage the encroaching stormtroopers, while Grogu continues to meditate. Just when it seems like victory is in hand, Moff Gideon, who has been watching from a cruiser, destroys the Razor Crest and unleashes his Dark Troopers. They capture the drained Grogu and take him away for further experimentation. Fett and Shand agree to stick with Din until Grogu is rescued. Mando returns to Nevarro and asks Cara Dune to use her position as Marshal to temporarily release the former Imperial he worked with during the prison break, Migs Mayfeld, to help track Moff Gideon. Mayfeld's Imperial clearances still gain him the access he needs to obtain the coordinates of Gideon's ship. Mayfeld reveals that there is a secluded Imperial Rhydonium refinery located in the heart of the planet Morak. After arriving on Morak, Din and Mayfeld disguise themselves as Imperials and deliver a shipment of Rhydonium to the facility. Inside, Din shows just how much he cares for Grogu by willingly removing his helmet to keep up the ruse, allowing living creatures to see his face. Din and Mayfeld are approached by Officer Valen Hess, who forces them into having a drink. The officer disrespects Imperial soldiers who died during Operation Cinder, a disastrous campaign that Mayfeld experienced personally. Angered by the callousness of his former superior, Mayfeld shoots Hess, forcing he and Din to fight their way out of the facility while Dune and Shand provide cover fire. As they flee on Fett's ship, Mayfeld shoots a cache of explosive Rhydonium, destroying the factory. For his help, Dune sets Mayfeld free. Din and Cara Dune manage to board an Imperial ship and take Dr. Pershing hostage. Later, Fett and Din track down Bo-Katan and Casca Reeves, seeking their help to rescue Grogu. Bo-Katan agrees to help as long as she can kill Moff Gideon and take the Darksaber. The group finds and boards Gideon's ship. Gideon unleashes his Dark Trooper droids, which are nearly indestructible. However, Din discovers that the Beskar spear can pierce the armor. He traps several and ejects them out of an airlock. Din confronts Gideon, fighting off his Darksaber with the Beskar spear. Din ultimately defeats the Moff and brings him to the bridge, along with Grogu. There, Gideon attempts to pit Bo-Katan against Din, who rightfully earned the Darksaber in the fight. Mando tries to give Bo-Katan the Darksaber. The weapon can't be given, only won in combat. Before all of this can come to head, however, the Dark Troopers who had been blasted into space return to Gideon's ship and begin to march toward the bridge, ripping apart any obstacles in their path. All hope seems lost as the Dark Troopers start to batter down the door to the bridge. Just then, however, a single mysterious X-Wing arrives and docks. A cloaked figure boards the craft and begins eliminating Dark Troopers. Moff Gideon realizes there is no longer any way out of his predicament and attempts to kill the child and then himself. But Din defends the child, and Cara Dune disables Gideon, knocking him unconscious. When the doors finally open, all the Dark Troopers have been destroyed, and the cloaked figure is revealed to be none other than Luke Skywalker. He heard Grogu's call from Tython, and has come to offer him the training he needs. Grogu doesn't want to leave his surrogate father, but Din insists that it's for the best. In an emotional farewell, Din again goes against ancient Mandalorian tradition, removing his helmet and showing Grogu his face. Luke vows to protect the child, while Din promises that one day he and Grogu will see each other again. Seemingly back to his old ways as a bounty hunter, Din is next seen tracking a new target by the name of Kaba Baez. When Kaba's goons surround Din, he slices his enemies to bits using the darksaber. He then bisects Baez and removes his head as proof of the kill. He delivers the bounty in exchange for the location of the new hideout of the Children of the Watch. Din locates the Armorer, along with Parts Vizsla, one of Din's rivals within the covert. The Armorer inspects the darksaber and confirms that winning it in combat grants the wielder leadership of Mandalore. She also asks Din for the Beskar spear so that it can be shaped into armor. She explains that
Mandalorian steel is meant for armor, not weapons.
Din requests that it be made into armor for Grogu. Parts Vizsla challenges Mando to a duel to win the darksaber from him, because the blade was forged by Vizsla's ancestor. Din wins, but when he reveals that he has removed his helmet, the Armorer declares him a Mandalorian no more. With the Razor Crest now a heap of scrap metal, Din sets out to retrieve a new ship. He receives a message from Peli Moto indicating that she has a replacement for him. So Din heads to Tatooine. Moto has an N1 starfighter from Naboo that has clearly seen better days. Din reluctantly agrees to help her finish restoring it and add new modifications along the way. After a lot of work, Din has a very fast and battle-ready new ship. He proclaims over the roar of the engine,
That's a lot of engine for a little ship.
After a successful flight test, Din is ready for his next adventure. While Din is working on his new ride, Boba Fett and Fennec Shand have taken over the Tatooine criminal empire formerly controlled by Jabba the Hutt. Their rule is shaky, however, and they find themselves up against the mayor of Mos Espa and the Pykes syndicate. In need of allies, Shand comes to Din, who agrees to help free of charge, but he has to make a quick stop first. Din heads to a remote forest planet, where he finds Luke Skywalker's droids constructing a Jedi school. He also finds Ahsoka, who warns Din to avoid distracting his former foundling from his Jedi training. Din leaves the armor made from the Beskar spear with Ahsoka and departs. Luke, meanwhile, senses that Grogu's heart is not fully invested in his Jedi training. He offers Grogu a choice: receive the armor left for him and return to his former caretaker, or continue his training and receive a lightsaber. Din heads to Mos Pelgo, now known as Freetown, overseen by Cobb Vanth, who is now a marshal. Vanth has taken a stand against the Pykes syndicate, and Din asks him to consider an alliance. After Din leaves, Cad Bane, a bounty hunter previously seen in the animated Clone Wars series, shoots Vanth when the marshal refuses to make a deal with him. Din returns to Mos Espa and finds the Pykes syndicate already closing in. Even worse, the other criminal leaders of Tatooine have turned on Fett and ambushed his allies. Despite their promises, Din and Fett resign themselves to their deaths in a fight for Mos Espa and its people. But things turn around when the people of Freetown arrive to help. Witnessing their marshal being gunned down spurred them into action. After the Pykes send two imposing and nearly indestructible battle droids into combat, Fett's allies scatter for cover. Fett then leaves the battlefield in an attempt to bring in reinforcements, leaving Din to distract the massive droids wreaking destruction on the city. It's at this point that Peli Moto arrives, and with her, Grogu, who has chosen to return to Din. Fett returns riding his Rancor, which destroys the droids with help from Din and Grogu. Fett then wins a duel against Cad Bane, ending the battle. Grogu connects with a rampaging Rancor through the Force, calming the creature. After Shand assassinates the Pike leadership and their backstabbing allies, she and Fett take control of Mos Espa. Meanwhile, Din and Grogu take to the stars in a restored M1 starfighter. As he's being transferred after his capture, Moff Gideon escapes New Republic custody. Captain Carson Teva of the New Republic Starfighter Corps finds a derelict prison transport blown open from the outside, with remnants of Beskar alloy lodged in the cabin wall. That leads Teva to suspect Mandalorians broke Gideon out of prison. It's soon clear the stormtroopers that Gideon equipped with Beskar armor are responsible, and that he never faced trial. Gideon soon appears in a meeting with various other Imperial bigwigs referring to themselves as a Shadow Council. Grand Admiral Thrawn's impending return is mentioned by Captain Gilead Pelion, while Brendel Hux, father of the sequel trilogy's Armitage Hux, alludes to his own cloning experiments. These are likely tied to the mission to resurrect Palpatine. After reuniting with Grogu, Din Djarin has only one priority: redeeming himself in the eyes of his people by bathing in the living waters beneath Mandalore. Showing his face to living beings isn't easily forgiven under the creed he swore. But the rumors that Mandalore is cursed and toxic make Din's mission anything but simple. He returns to Nevarro, which has become a thriving hub of trade and culture under the leadership of High Magistrate Greef Karga. Din hopes to recruit a droid to help him scout Mandalore's atmosphere, and there's only one droid that he trusts. He hopes to revive the deactivated IG-11. Despite Din's best efforts, IG can't be restored to his former self. Thankfully, he gets a pinch hitter in the form of R5-D4, the very same droid fans may remember from A New Hope. The newly minted trio sets off to explore the supposedly cursed planet Mandalore. Din finally ventures to his people's ancestral homeland. Mandalore has certainly seen better days. The Empire's brutal bombing left the surface of the planet devastated, and the domed cities that existed during the Clone Wars are nothing but rubble. That desolate appearance doesn't discourage Din though. After determining that the air is fine to breathe, he descends into the old capital of Sundari and the mines below. The Empire's bombing raids awoke some nasty creatures, and a mysterious mechanical foe captures Din, along with the Darksaber. Grogu leaves the planet with R5 to find help, and they bring back Bo-Katan, who has been sulking since losing a chance to take the Darksaber. The two Mandalorians mend their former animosity toward one another, and Bo helps Din descend into the living waters. The living waters wind up being much deeper than expected, but Bo is there once again to help Din out. She also catches a glimpse in the depths of what appears to be a mythosaur, a symbol of Mandalore thought to be extinct for ages. Having dipped in the waters, Din and Bo-Katan are officially cleansed by the terms of the Creed. While Din and Bo-Katan are off visiting holy sites, evil grows at the heart of the galaxy. Dr. Pen Pershing, once the chief cloning scientist for Moff Gideon, is now a reformed New Republic citizen, thanks to the galactic government's new amnesty program. Pershing clearly wants to use his knowledge and skills for good, but once again he falls in with the wrong people. Elia Kane, another of Gideon's former subordinates, befriends Pershing and convinces him that she too is reformed. This is all a ruse, however, and it ultimately leads to Pershing being tortured with a mind flayer. This proves that the Imperial remnant still has great power and influence in the galactic core. It also demonstrates just how ineffectual the New Republic has already become. The Death Star may have been destroyed, but the galaxy is still in chaos. The New Republic doesn't have enough soldiers or resources to properly patrol the Outer Rim. Even on Coruscant, every major initiative is hindered by bureaucratic red tape.
You could submit a C-1023 request, but I've never seen someone from the amnesty program make one of those. I'd have to check if that's even possible.
Din and Bo-Katan return to Din's old covert after bathing in the living waters. To Bo's surprise, they're both welcomed with mostly open arms, as she hasn't removed her helmet since her dip in the pool. The freshly strengthened covert bonds during a mission to rescue Paz Vizsla's son, Ragnar, who's been abducted by a giant flying beast. Bo-Katan leads the war party and learns more about the way. Soon, Captain Teva arrives to ask for help after being denied backup from the New Republic government. The planet Nevarro has been attacked by pirates who are secretly under orders from Moff Gideon himself. After some negotiation, the covert agrees to assist. A full deployment of Mandalorians arrives on Nevarro to fight off the invaders. No pirate gang is a match for an organized and fully equipped Mandalorian battalion, and the planet is quickly saved. Din's covert has finally revealed itself to the world in broad daylight, and Nevarro embraces them. The whole clan is offered land on the planet where they can build and live in the open, free from the secrecy they've been confined to for so long. Surprisingly, the armorer asks Bo-Katan to remove her helmet and go find her old Mandalorian group. Seeing a mythosaur in the living waters marked the end of an age, the armorer says, and the clans must be reunited. After helping liberate Nevarro, Din, Grogu, and Bo-Katan set off to find more Mandalorians to join them. The ultimate goal is assembling an army capable of reclaiming Mandalore. The crew heads to a small world called Plazia 15, where Bo's old mercenary faction is currently serving as private security. But before being granted an audience with the group, they must first solve a mystery. The planet has been beset by a rash of strange droid malfunctions, so Din and Bo-Katan are asked to investigate. After visiting a droid bar and engaging in surface-level discourse about robot rights, the pair finds the culprit. Plazia 15's head of security who was lingering loyalty to Count Dooku. They earn what appear to be powerful allies in Plazia 15's aristocracy, and they're given their audience with the other Mandalorians. By the time Bo-Katan and Din Djarin make contact with their old platoon, they're not exactly honored guests. After failing to win the Darksaber from Moff Gideon, Bo lost the respect of her former colleagues. They left her behind with their fleet of stolen former Imperial ships. Axe Woves, once a trusted lieutenant of Bo's, is the new leader of the group.
Axe Woves is their leader now.
He isn't happy to see her, and he challenges Bo-Katan to a duel. Both combatants dig deep into their arsenals. In the end, Bo comes out victorious, but she refuses to kill Axe in the traditional custom. She declares that Mandalorians have spent too much time and energy across history spilling each other's blood. If they are to retake Mandalore, she says they must finally be united. The trouble, once again, is that Bo still doesn't hold the Darksaber. That's when Din steps in to explain that he was defeated by a monster in the old mines of Mandalore, and that Bo-Katan is the one who saved him. As such, possession of the Darksaber transferred to the monster, then to Bo. She claims the blade and ignites it in dramatic fashion, bringing her old Mandalorian cohort under her command. Bo-Katan and Din Djarin return to the covert on Nevarro, along with the Mandalorian group from Plazia 15. Grogu gets an upgrade in the form of a pilotable IG droid body, and the two very different clans try to find common ground. It's a bit tricky at first, since the Children of the Watch have very specific views on the Creed and the others see them as extremists. But with a rousing speech from Bo and the promise of reclaiming the home world, everybody more or less agrees to get along.
It is time to retake our homeworld.
The full Mandalorian force journeys to Mandalore, and a small scout party touches down to explore the surface and find the Great Purge. The nature of the planet's atmosphere prohibits contact with the ships in orbit. After a bit of a hike, the party encounters a faction of Mandalorian survivors who have been living on the planet since the Great Purge. They quickly pledge their allegiance to Bo-Katan and help lead the newcomers to their destination. Mandalore has become a very dangerous place. A giant monster attacks the survivors' land ship at one point, and the general landscape appears inhospitable. Still, they make it to the Great Forge, only to find a new obstacle. When the party arrives at the forge, they're met by an elite squad of Beskar-clad stormtroopers. Moff Gideon has built a secret base adjacent to the forge itself, and he's been using the myth of Mandalore being cursed as cover to continue his cloning experiments. Din is captured, Axe Wolves flies back to the fleet for help, and Paz Vizsla heroically sacrifices himself to ensure that the others escape. He's killed by a trio of Praetorian guards, the elite warriors clad in red who were most recently seen in The Last Jedi. The Mandalorians who had previously been living on the planet take Bo and company to a hidden cave hideout, where they show their farming efforts that have been resuscitating Mandalore's natural ecosystem. When Axe reaches a command ship, he orders all the other Mandalorians down to the surface as backup. He continues to pilot the cruiser as a decoy. With Grogu's help, Din is able to escape his captors. Din and Grogu discover that Gideon has been developing clones of himself in hopes of building a Force-sensitive super army. Din destroys the clones and tracks down Gideon, who has a shiny new suit of Beskar armor. With help from Bo-Katan, Din and Grogu defeat Gideon and the Praetorian guards, who all burn when Axe crashes a former Imperial cruiser directly into the base and blows it up. Using his growing force powers, Grogu protects Din and Bo-Katan from the blast. With Moff Gideon finally defeated and his base on Mandalore destroyed, the planet returns to its rightful inhabitants. Bo-Katan lights the Great Forge, and the Armorer begins baptizing young Mandalorians in the living waters between the resurrection of old cultural customs and the return of Mandalore's natural ecosystem. Things look bright for the planet. But Din and Grogu don't stay for long. For Grogu to rise from foundling to Mandalorian apprentice, Din decides to officially adopt him as his son. The little green guy is dubbed Din Grogu, and his new dad vows to take him on adventures befitting an apprentice. Back on Nevarro, Greef Karga offers Din a cabin outside of town where he and Grogu can live and rest between missions. IG-11 is resurrected as the new Marshal of Nevarro, and Din becomes a New Republic contractor. While the duo's saga is far from over, they've definitely reached an ending of sorts. Mandalore has been retaken, Grogu is no longer a foundling, and Din has been officially recognized as a force for good in the galaxy.